this is Matt Welsh with Spiritual Media Blog, and tonight I'm here with a very special guest, Lyon Folsom. Corey is a highly regarded love and relationship coach and the author of Soul Statements, a love coach's guide to successful communication. Corey's award-winning book, Soul Statements, is a practical guide full of simple yet potent tools for making small shifts that produce outsized benefits in life and love. As a certified NLP practitioner and relationship coach, he helps people increase the soulfulness, clarity, and ease with which they experience life. Corey's passionate about helping people expand their empathy and communication skills. After a spiritual soul awakening in 2009, Corey participated in Ipsalu, Source School of Tantra Yoga, Love Coach Academy, Tony Robbins, and other programs. He has also been a professional tracker, aboriginal skills instructor, wilderness guide for newly sober people, and a vision quest leader. He enjoys daily movement and is the father of 2 adult sons. Corey, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
So tell us more about Soul Statements. Why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book because I found that my coaching clients were having such great success when I would ask them in what's happening in those moments of distress, uncertainty, hopelessness, like when that triggered. And I realized it makes all the difference what you make it mean, what you're going to tell yourself in that little micro moment. Like, I'm feeling less than, fill in the blank. And so a soul statement is something that's true. It's the nature of your soul, your essence. So it's a present time declaration about an inner resource. So you can remind yourself, oh, I'm resourced in this fashion. I have a loving heart. There's strength in my center, something like that. So if they can have that, it's not something you kind of come up with in the instant. You spend some time, connect with however you ground yourself, be centered, and who am I? What am I made of? And what's the most powerful statement about me right now? And that you can form that soul statement. And so you can bring that out in those moments when you need it most.
That sounds great. Tell me a little bit more. When you say in moments of distress, are these just any moments of distress and anxiety, or are these more focused on distress with your partner?
All of the above. So, I can't do this, or I don't know I don't know what to do next. And, my center can guide me. I'm loved even when I forget I am, and so you can remind yourself, create that emotional coherence, and then your next thought can be based on a deeper truth and what's really true, not the circumstance or worry and that's was happening.
Yeah, and I like that, especially how you mentioned the emotional coherence part, because I know, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of the relationship problems that I've seen, people's emotions get flooded, or they become really overwhelmed or anxious. So then they're acting out of emotion, not necessarily logic or reason. So how do you help people to calm their nervous system down, reduce their emotional reaction so that they remember to say these soul statements and they don't just kind of fly off the handle?
Yeah. Well, as I said before, it's something you create ahead of time. So it's like
Yeah.
in your little pouch on your belt to bring up. And so you're reminding yourself of in present time. So you're not uh, as opposed to a typical affirmation, which still good to do, but you're not inhabiting emotionally some future state or experience. You're declaring, hey, this is what I'm made of. And so my body knows how to heal itself. I have a certainty that's deeper than my thoughts. My distress is not a forever condition. And so uh, when you can remind yourself of that, it creates a little bit of surety and certainty. You're connecting to that sure, certain place within you, if just for a moment, and then you can acknowledge your own heart. It's like before maybe even acknowledging the person you're with for what was just said, acknowledge your heart on
Yeah.
silently on the inside, like, I ouch, ouch, that hurt.
Yeah.
That's some acknowledgement. And then it gives you that little bit of space to maybe hold a little more tension versus blurting out the next thing you otherwise would have, and get a little curious. Wow, I'm wondering why you would say that, or and on it goes.
I like that. And are these soul statements, do you provide examples of them or do you encourage people to come up with their own?
Yeah. So the ones I've been saying, those are examples. Some people uh, just find one. Like I have a woman that I coach. She just, whatever comes up that she's feeling a bit of insecurity, for instance, she'll just say, "I got this." That's a soul statement. I got this. I
Yeah.
got this. But the reason that works is she feels it in her bones. Like her
Yeah.
cells are in agreement. Like, yes, that's true. I do got this. And so that's what makes it work. The more you can emotionally, get it that way, the more power. And so what's right about me is always available. Um, that's another soul statement. And so I am like probably most people who just have one that's more suited for the way I'm triggered. And so if I'm feeling like I did something, you know, wrong or bad, or just like, oh, that was a screw up, you know what? What's right about me is always available.
I
So
like
it's a
that.
little more tailored.
Yeah, I like that. And could you talk also, how does this help with communication? Because it's to me, it seems like the first step is to, calm ourselves, become emotionally, centered, connect with this affirmation. But then we need to learn how to communicate this either to our, our partner, our family member, what sort of communication skills does this help with?
Well, I like to say that self-care is soul care. And so if you have that thought, it's like you're supercharging the effect. Oh, I'm not just going on the treadmill. I'm doing this as an act of love to myself. I'm taking care of me. And so it's helpful to just make that more conscious. And so in time and stillness, or some people journal, some people take a stroll, but however you get more centered in that more still place where you can hear the whisper of your spirit. So I like to say whatever feeds your spirit. And so those are the times where you're filling your emotional well, or your emotional gas tank. And so if you're feeling full, the winds of life are like, yeah, no big, and I can handle it. Whereas if you're like, up to here with stress, you're like, any little thing is like too much. So your self-care allows you to be more present, and that knowing who you are and what you're made of, that kind of clarity allows you to speak with more clarity. It allows you to not feel like you have to counteract someone's negative evaluation of you. You can just be like, I know who I am. I
Yeah.
know what my own integrity is. And you can not have to just, cycle into the argument. You can just um, speak with more directness to what your truth is.
Do you have any go-to phrases or communications that you use? I mean, some people, I mean, you used, I think one of them earlier, like, ouch, that hurt. I
Yeah.
like that. Or just some people might be like, oh, it sounds like you're really upset about this. What's going on? Tell me more. I mean, do you have some like communication phrases that you like or that you use?
Oh, to self-soothe, you mean?
I'm talking about more like if you're in a conflict with someone else.
Mhm. Yeah. I'll say to myself silently, I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know who I am. And And so if someone can say this, someone can say that, but it doesn't make me wonder about the truth of myself.
I like that. I like that. Now, I also want to come back to you talk about self-care because I know for myself, like when I am doing my self-care activities, I'm in a much better position to be able to communicate and interact with other people. And when I don't do them, I become triggered much more quickly. So, I'm curious, what are some self-care activities that you recommend, especially for people who say, I don't have any time for self-care?
Yeah. Um, well, I was just going to say, Matt, that, you know, one thing that I treasure is my time by myself. Um, and it's so different for each person. Like some people they're fed by, interacting with children. Now, other people are like, I can't handle it. It's too chaotic. And if you don't love the chaos, maybe that's not the best thing where you fill up. It's just like, some people go surfing. So, I love hiking in nature, especially like there's this one beach up north that I go to whenever I can. I get there at sunrise or even before when it's just getting light. And it's like I have this miles of beach to myself, and there's birds and there's seals. And I just think, oh man, this is great. I'm having a good time just being. And
Yeah.
and just and I feel so filled. Like I every morning when I wake up, I spend a little time facing the east and just noticing that there's a new day, and the day is dawning, and I got another day. I
Yeah.
get to be here. And so those are things that I do.
Those are really powerful. And I mean, I like how you talk about creating these routines. I mean, how do we go about creating routines that really align with our values and goals? If we might, have, kids and work and we just don't feel like we have time to do those things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, once you're a parent, the kids are your purpose. It's like it or not. It's like ready or not. It's like, your life belongs to them. You know?
Right.
And so I remember when I had my two boys and they were both super young, I remember thinking, I am not cut out for this. I'm just not.
Yeah.
But it got better, and I got more integrated, and it was okay. But yeah, you know you have more to offer, whether it's a child or a parent or a peer. You just have more to offer when you're um more full of and more. And so yeah, I like my alone time. And that thing, that ritual in the morning, I have a long version, maybe 10 minutes. I have a short version, like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And so, I do what I can, but I don't do nothing. That's one of the keys. And because I stood there and felt gratitude for life, for the light, I imagine the light like just coming into my body as a healing force, as God's essence and love. And I feel it coming into my body. And I just like, oh, thank you so much. I can do that in 45 seconds. Just kind of bathe in that for that time. And that helps me. It helps center me. It helps me have that attitude of gratitude first thing, and all to the good. So and the other thing too, when you have a partner and there's all these demands, taking an extra 20 seconds when you come home to just meet and greet, and
Yeah.
and or when you're heading out, before you head out the door, circle over to where they are and put your arm around them and say, I'm really happy to be on this journey with you.
Yeah. I
and
like
and
that.
that doesn't take a ton of time.
I like that. Yeah, those little moments really add up throughout the day. And I appreciate you sharing about being a parent. I have a 3-year-old son who is like just definitely the center, and like all has got so much love and gratitude for him. But I mean, it is exhausting too. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious, how do you what advice do you have for parents who are, just love their kids and their purpose, but they're exhausted and they're wiped out or stressed out?
Yeah. If there's any way to just kind of share a little of the burden with some other family member,
Yeah,
you know, where you can take a whole day off, even if it's just once a quarter. So,
yeah,
spring, summer, fall, winter, just, oh, if I could just take a whole day just for me. And maybe you don't even go anywhere. Like
yeah.
the kid goes somewhere and you have this little staycation, um, and just, on purpose, ignore everything and just whatever makes you feel like, oh, I'm connecting with me. And yeah.
I like that. And I mean, I think what I hear you saying is when you take that time to connect with yourself, you actually have more energy and empathy for the people in your life.
That's right. And one of the best things partners can do, especially when they have a lot of time demands, is be like, my partner, I want to really be with her when I'm with her.
Right. Yeah.
And so I make the time we do have, my attention, my presence. I'm just not doing other stuff at the same time. I'm just with you. And so sometimes we'll just do practice a little tango, pull back the rug on the wooden floor and just let's just do tango for 5 minutes.
I like
And it's like
that.
it just is such a it makes the day so much more beautiful. Like, oh, we had that special connection for 5 minutes.
That's great. And I mean, talking about the soul statements also, I
Mhm.
mean, how do these soul statements help you to experience more empathy and love for your partner?
Yeah. So if I can only love them to the extent that I love me. And I remember when I first heard that, I was probably like 29 years old. And I'm like, it was my first time in therapy. I'm like, what's therapy? And they said that to me, and I'm like, I don't no idea what you're talking about. I have no context for this. But yeah, um, it's just like one of the soul statements I have: living in wonder is a gift and a joy.
I like
I
that.
have a beloved that dwells within. That's a great thing to remind yourself. Like,
Yeah.
think of your own heart as a beloved. It's taking care of you, you know. And so, um, uh, my friend Kelly Bryson, he's fond of saying, "You're you're always lovable, even when you forget that you are."
Right.
Why not remind
Right.
ourselves
Yeah,
things like that?
that's good. And yeah, I mean, I also, I appreciate you sharing that you've been to therapy. I've been to therapy too. I'm also a therapist, and I think it's such a valuable thing. I mean, do you mind just, sharing a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get interested in this? I mean, what were some of the maybe events in your life that got you wanting to help other people?
Well, I grew up in small town Maine, and I had a mom and a dad and a little sister, and it was a great family. We had extended family. We were pretty chilled out people, and nobody was yelling at each other or anything like that. Um, I was an Eagle Scout, and we went to church every Sunday, and it was great. And we didn't do emotions. I mean, we did cheerful or quiet,
Yeah,
and it didn't mean I didn't have feelings. I just didn't have the structure or the permission. I just didn't feel like there was this kind of unsaid norm, like
sure,
we don't do that. And
sure.
so then when I got, and I was super shy around girls. I got almost all the way through high school without ever having to talk to a girl. So I was just like, and so I probably would have been voted, if they had this category in the high school yearbook, least likely to become a love and relationship coach.
That's funny.
And so then, as I'm off into the world, I'm an adult. My the relationships, the intimate relationships I got into, were because the woman was so exasperated that she just said, hey, you want to hang out, or like, my name's Laura, or whatever. And was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know how to say, hey, my name's Corey, how you doing? So and that was carried along in part because, I was a really good person. I was really interested in being a good person, which is fine, except it also, I was over nice, I was over polite, I didn't speak up for my needs. I wasn't aware of my needs most of the time to even speak
Yeah.
to them. So I was just going along. And so there was just these poor level of communication skills. And so, and I just wondered why life wasn't responding with awesomeness to such a good guy.
Yeah.
And later I found out, oh, life doesn't really respond so much to what we want as it does to presence and alignment.
Yeah.
So uh, eventually I hired a relationship coach of my own, and he taught me lots of stuff. And a lot of it was the real foundation was to be honest with myself, like my motivation for doing this thing or not doing that thing. And I realized that a lot of my life was based on avoiding embarrassment.
Huh.
I don't want to
Interesting.
put myself out there and say something and maybe I'll be embarrassed. Nah, or I just so in a way it's a fear-based existence.
Yeah.
And so that's and I actually talk about it in my book, that I actually did the 12 steps of AA, where and I went through the big book, and I crossed out the word alcohol wherever it appeared, which is
Yeah.
and wrote the word fear above.
Wow.
So a
Good for
fear, I
you.
was worked it for my, fear-based, and I discovered
Wow.
fearlessness is connected to my power.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. Did you come up with that on your own, or did somebody
Yeah.
say?
I
Yeah,
did.
I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, and what sort of changes did you see in your life after you went through that?
Well, I remember the moment. There was this one moment. I was in this workshop and I was doing this exercise, and I'm sitting kind of knee to knee with this woman, and uh, we are supposed to be eye gazing. I mean, we were eye gazing,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
my mind wasn't. My mind
right.
going to, like, oh my God, we were supposed to do this for 45 minutes, and yeah, and and she reached out, and with her finger she just tapped my sternum, and she said,
Yeah.
"Be with me, be here with me." And I was like, "Oh, cool! I've got instructions. That's awesome!" Like
Yeah,
specific, request. I'm like,
yeah,
I can do that. And
right.
I was like, whoa, I'm here. I am here. And it was like all my cells were like, finally, he's here. He's in his body. He's in the moment. And it was like so joyful. It's like the air in the room was replaced by breathable joy. And I was like, oh, great. And so what happened is I realized I don't have to practice anything. I just have to stop practicing all the crap that isn't really me.
Yeah,
So, and then, and that was actually right at the moment I started working with my coach, and he was telling me all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, so happy to finally have like almost like an owner's manual, these instructions. And sometimes it was like, I got it. No other, nothing else needed. I'm here. And then other times it's like trying to turn around an aircraft carrier. It takes a lot of ocean.
yeah.
You know?
Right. Right. So now what's it like for you as a relationship coach, working with other people, helping them with their relationships?
It's so thrilling, that feeling of real contribution. When I had a couple this last week, they're like, you saved our marriage.
Wow.
And I'm like, there's not even words to describe the fulfillment of that,
Yeah.
you know. And it's not like, I mean, some people maybe shouldn't be together, and that wasn't them. And so,
Right.
but they didn't, for instance, didn't realize, oh, we don't have to do it perfectly. We just have to keep trying. I mean, that's one
Yeah.
of the things, you know. So how great is that? And I remember I reminded him at the end of the last session. I said, just remember, you don't have to have the answers. You have tools, and just keep using the tools.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And I know another part of your background in training, which caught my attention, was you have a background in Tantra. I will tell you, I know very little, and probably the only things I know I've like seen in TV shows and movies, which I'm sure is not an accurate depiction of it. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I'm sure you could probably spend hours on it, but for people who don't know much about it, like, what is Tantra and how do you integrate that into your relationships?
Yeah. I mean, Tantra is kind of like there's a big world of Tantra, and there's
Right.
lots of different schools and directions and ways. There's white Tantra, pink Tantra, red Tantra, whatever. And so, um, but for me, what it really boils down to, it's an attitude. It's an attitude of looking for presence, for your own presence, looking to inhabit this moment, feeling the texture of now. And so, and the more deeply you inhabit the moment, the more you're being tantric. So if I'm so present and so um engaged in a phone call with my beloved, it's like that's a tantric phone call.
Yeah.
So and then to inhabit the moment, you slow down. So a lot of the tantra that I've been taught is about slowing down. It's like, how slow can you go? How deep can you glow? And so, um, and that's where I got that other soul statement from, or I formed into a soul statement that I have a beloved that dwells within. And so, and also there's another kind of concept in the schools I went to, the Ipsalu and the Tantra Yoga, that the same creator who made your mind made your body. And so
Mm.
it's an acceptance of, hey, this is my package. This is what I get to live life with. And so it just kind of circumvents that kind of body shame or anything like that. And um and so we hold, when two people come together, say in sexual union, I mean that's considered sacrament and holy. And if we approach it like that, I like to think that sex stands for sacred energy exchange.
Yeah.
And if we hold an attitude of the sacred with our partner, then it makes for a very beautiful um experience. And it's like it really in a way doesn't matter what you do, um, as much as how you feel. And so, there's a lot of tantric practices where you'll see in that artwork where this woman's sitting on this man's lap, and they're not moving, they're running energy from crown to base to crown, and um, they're just they're building a vibration there. And but at the same time, you're getting more and more still. And so
Yeah.
I actually came up with this little snippet myself, which is there's more pleasure in stillness than in movement.
I like that. So really, truly just slowing down, even in the midst of sexual union.
Or just sitting, like I said, sitting knee to knee and gazing in each other's eyes.
Yeah.
Or you're lying on the bed spooning, just cradling, one person's being cradling and the other person's feeling cradled. and
Yeah.
and you're just fully clothed perhaps, but you're just offering this love in this form. And I
Right.
think that's what really trips up a lot of couples as they get longer in their time together, is they touch each other less because they don't want it misinterpreted.
Hmm.
Whereas um, they don't want to maybe put a hand on the elbow and give a squeeze and be like, hey, love you, babe, or whatever, because they're not maybe up for more. So they don't want to
Yeah.
give kind of wrong impression. Well, I prefer to just let every act of affection be a standalone event.
I
And
like
then,
that.
and if you're up for more, say, I'm up for more,
Yeah.
or just, or do something else and say, how's this feel? Or, or just say, hey, this feels really nice. Are you up for more? And so you have a little conversation, and I call it non-obligation touch.
Yeah.
So if we can just have that become actual partners with a conversation about, hey, I want to feel free to offer affection throughout the day, knowing that I'm not giving you signals like I'm going to be down for whatever later.
Yeah.
I just want to be affectionate. It's like, cool.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great. And then, another thing I hear you is really trying to create this sacred encounter. I mean, what advice would you have for people to do that when we live in a society or culture where we are just almost programmed to think like, just the superficial, external, like carnal desires. I mean, how can we shift into viewing, our partner and sex in a more sacred manner?
Well, here's one everyone can start with. Think of your partner not as a draftee, but as a volunteer.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
they they
Okay.
they weren't drafted in the position of my girlfriend. They
Yeah.
volunteered for that. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, that's, maybe I should respect that.
Yeah.
They're under no contract to stay,
Yeah.
if it doesn't feel good, and so, okay, cool, they're a volunteer. Oh, wow, that means they're giving me their most precious possession, which is time.
That's so true.
That's
Yeah.
worthy of honoring.
Yeah.
And so and so I have this feeling of, my girlfriend has chosen me to spend her life with.
Yeah.
So then where I go to is, I want her to look back and say, that was a good choice
Yeah.
being with him. And so there's that. That's just kind of an attitude. And then, um, let's see. Um, oh, and then I know that we're all equal, we're all children of God, and this and that. And it's a helpful to just mental exercise, for me at least, to say, I'm not the most important person in the room,
Hmm.
and act as if. And I've noticed the times where I feel snarky and kind of like a little cranky, and I go, oh my God, I'm only thinking about me.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this person's just asked me to, you know, help changing some pillowcases. And I'm like, I don't give a crap about that. You can leave them
Yeah.
on for a month. I don't care, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wait, this beautiful person has something that's important to them. It's not going to
Yeah.
hurt me to help them out.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
sure. And so then I'm thinking about them, and it's like, it's not so much what I'm getting out of it as like, oh, maybe I'm giving.
Here's a chance to
Yeah.
make them happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you don't want to over give,
Right. I
but there's a balance.
That's what I was when you were saying this. And I'm glad you used that word balance. I mean, I know we can never find perfect balance, but how do we find that balance of giving to our partner, but not over giving and still maintaining our boundaries and getting our needs and self-care met?
Yeah. It's just, I believe, for me, that I think as we get older, as at least as I've gotten older, my alone time's gotten more important. And maybe I have the luxury of it now too, because my kids are 31 and 28. And so I can just take the time I need, to be alone, and that might just look like twittering around and procrastinating, and that's okay too. But um, these when we connect to what we are, not just who we are, and we connect to why and what and who we are. And so, like, I have a teacher that said one time, the reward for enlightenment is work. So in other words, you've gotten to another place, oh wow, look for ways to give
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And so and another thing that helps me circle back into my taking care of me. I like to journal, I like to sit and meditate. Is my center informs me as I love my partner, and I remind myself I have a sacred contract to love
yeah,
and to loving. And so it's like just reminding me with those soul statements helps me be the version of me that I like to think I am. I get to live as that when I remind myself what I'm about.
yeah. Those are great words of wisdom. And I mean, we've covered a lot tonight. I mean, was there any topics that we didn't get to that you feel like is important for us to go over?
Well, I was just thinking when you said that, Matt, that or what I thought of when you said that was, my time in the wilderness has just been so and so informed who I am and
Yeah.
how I am. And I can remember, like, there's this one, it was actually a couple of years ago, and I remember we stopped at this little spring. I remember sitting there, and it was pretty hot. It's July or August, but there was a certain contentment. There was dragonflies, there's little water bubbling. It was just this feeling of peace. And then I can remember back to that time, that place, and I can also realize that same contentment and peace is in me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have noticed it. You
r-
know, as another teacher said, it's all done with mirrors.
Yeah.
And so one of my still statements is the contentment of the mountains lives inside of me.
Oh, I'll have to remember that because yeah, I feel very peaceful at nature. But I think what I hear you saying is, we can take that peacefulness and take that with us.
That's right, absolutely. And so all of this really, it can be summed up by saying you can learn to call up the best part of you in a moment.
Right.
And then that next right action becomes more obvious when you're connected to your value and what you value.
Yeah, it seems like it really does become a lot easier when we're connecting to that center and that peacefulness. It's like, oh, okay, this is what I need to say or not say or do or not do.
Yeah, right, right. I can hold a little back and just be curious about this other person, maybe
Right.
learn something, and
Yeah.
maybe not cause more wounding.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and how about if people want to know more about you, if they're interested in your coaching in your book, we'll start off with your coaching first. I mean, are you still offering
Yeah,
relationship coaching now?
yeah,
So
yeah. Singles and couples.
okay, and so if people wanted to get relationship coaching, what's the best place to get a hold of you for that?
At my website, corerelationship.com, and it's just CORE relationship.com.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, and I was going to say, and there's a page on that website just dedicated to the book, describing the book, and some great things people said about it. And there's a couple links to click on to order it. So that's all right
Yeah, that was my next question was how can we find your book? So you
there.
you hit the nail on the head with that. Um, all right, well, Corey, thank you so much for taking time to be with us tonight, and really glad we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Matt.